All right, the meeting is called to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to the May Committee of the Whole meeting for the Community High School District 94 Board of Education. Mission statement, please.
Oh, that's me. Community High School strives to promote and provide growth experiences in learning, leadership, and living.
Thank you, Rich. Roll call, please.
Mr. Braun?
Here.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Here.
Mr. Ramus?
Present.
Ms. Munoz?
Here.
Mr. Nagle?
Present.
Mr. Sake?
Present.
Mr. Suniga?
Here.
All right, that brings us to public participation. This is the portion of our meeting where any member of the public can address the Board of Education on any topic. We welcome your comments and will carefully listen to your concerns. We will not be able to engage in a dialogue during public participation, but when appropriate, we will direct the administration to follow up. Presentations are limited to no more than 5 minutes per person, with a total time limit of 30 minutes for public participation. If you wish to make personal charges or complaints against individual employees, volunteers, or students of the district, we request that you send the board your concerns in writing rather than stating those concerns during public comment. If anyone currently present wishes to make public comment and hasn't already done so, please fill out one of the comment forms in the back of the room and hand it to someone seated at the table. At this point, we have received no comment forms and no online comment submission. So that brings us to reports and information. Teaching and learning science.
Good evening. Thank you again for your time tonight for us to talk a little bit about what's going on academically, even though we're at the very end of the school year. I have the opportunity to reintroduce you to Scott Albright, who is our division head of science, who's here tonight to talk about their program. You'll notice that he's going to have 4 main areas he's going to focus on for you, talking a little bit about the philosophy and goals for the department as a whole, giving you an overview not only of the coursework by grade level, but also talking about some of the enrichment opportunities that he's been able to create over the last few years. We'll talk a little bit about a health pathway that we're hoping to be able to put in place over the next couple of years, and then ultimately share with you a little bit about the STEM clubs that are working here in the building. You'll notice that we've got a bit of an African scene here for you. We chose to integrate some of the material that freshmen and sophomores see throughout their curriculum. So there's a storylining curriculum that's used in biology, and the first unit of the year looks at Africa. And as you can see, as you go through here, it's going to start with characteristics of life, and then some of the other slides as you go through will kind of walk you through that simultaneously. So with that, I'll introduce you to Mr. Albright.
I'm not quite that tall. Thank you for the opportunity. As we go through, there'll be quite a bit. I'm going to try to make us, get through it as concisely as possible. But I do want to make sure that we have a chance to see and hear about the things that have been going on and that will be coming, because there's a lot of exciting things that in the next year, 2 years or so will really help put us on a path to allowing kids to be successful and to move on into potential STEM careers. So with that, we can take a look and get started. The first 3 bullets that you see there are really the tenets that we strive every day and make sure that our new staff, when they come, understand is what we're really about. We strive to build a place where every kid wants to be. That, it sounds kind of contrite, but it's really something that we talk about. It's something that I say continuously. It's where you get kids to, want to be part of the community. And that's the first step to building a classroom, right? The second step, or tenet that you see there, talks about making every kid's brain work a little bit every day. Teaching kids how to struggle, teaching them how to persevere, getting them to a point where, things are hard, and then giving them the appropriate nudge to get them moving again, so that we challenge kids to think critically and to keep growing throughout the entire year. Teaching kids to think and act like scientists. When we started this, about a decade ago, it was, trying to get away from a worksheet a day, a memorization of a list to spit back on a test, and getting kids to actually do science, to be scientists, and in some cases to think it like an engineer at the same time. Later, we were lucky the state changed standards, and this was codified with what they call the science and engineering practices. We'll talk about those in a few seconds. And they became, the way that we could communicate those to kids. These are the things, the attributes we're trying to build throughout the courses that you take throughout the 4 years you're here. The last one, really, creating a bridge to post-secondary plans. That one has, in the 11 years I've been here, a little late added to the game. As we've gotten the first three really ingrained, it then became important for us to take a look at what comes next. And, things changed in the workforce, technology changed, our community changed, both staff and students, and it was time for us to really start thinking about how do we promote the next step, whatever that might be for kids, using the skills that we practice every day in science class. So, science and engineering practices that come from our standard. Here are the 8 practices listed for you. And you can see, these are things in probably all of our days. We had the scientific method, but these are our attributes that we ask our kids to participate in throughout the year. They're not sequential. They're not covered in every lesson, but within every unit of study, a kid's going to participate in each one of these 8 at least once, if not many more times. And it's, getting kids to think critically and communicate and collaborate, to use reason, to use research, and then to make some informed decisions. So the rest of the slideshow is going to talk about some of the work that we've done to ensure equity for all students, remove some courses along the way that created inequities or were dead ends, create STEM course opportunities. We're currently working on building a healthcare pathway and increasing engineering and green careers opportunities. The last one has to do with some of the extracurricular things and some of the outside events that go on through our division. So as we look at the first one, we talked about trying to create a place where kids want to be, and then trying to get them to think and act like a scientist, getting their brains to really dig in every day. We know that we've done some good work with it. When we look at how our kids performed last year on the Illinois Science Assessment, so this year's seniors, last year's juniors, were one of the 680 groups of kids around the high school, or high school kids around the state that participated. When the results come back in September, it's a mass data sheet with all kinds of stuff there, and it's pretty hard to tease out what all of it means. So to make it more meaningful, I used the Illinois Interactive Report Card to find about a dozen schools that were similar to us, similar demographics, things like number of IEPs, low income, diversity, and I wanted to see how did we compare to those people, the people that have schools that are similar to us. And this chart shows those 12 schools there. It's kind of hard to see. We're circled there far on the right. Out of those schools, when you look at the percentage of students who hit proficient or exemplary, we had the second highest rate out of all of those, showing our kids really participated well and did a very nice job when they're compared to their peers. When we take a larger look at it, though, and we look at how we did in the state, the state average score is a 799. The number really is meaningless, but that's what the average is. Our score was slightly higher than that at 804. When you look at what that means, according to all the states in the high schools, or all the high schools in the state, we are 228 out of 680. Puts us in the top third around the state in terms of the average score. And the percentage of students that were proficient or exemplary. The state average was 52%, and we were at 58. So, when you think about all the schools in our state and the diversity that state has, and you consider, these are schools that could be like, Walter Payton Prep, and they could be schools like little Amboy out west of us, everything in the middle. Our kids are holding their own. They're doing very well. And, a lot of it comes back to that, getting them to think and act like a scientist every day. So once we start thinking about, what we want our kids to do, the question then becomes, how do we give them experiences that matter? How do we present opportunities for them to have classes of interest and also classes that can lead someplace beyond us? We typically have our freshmen take some level of biology, and then followed sophomore year some level of chemistry. And then, as you can see, junior, senior year, the options really begin to open up, and we'll talk a little bit through that in a few minutes. But one of the key things to realize at this point is that 9th and 10th grade years experience, for the most part, with various levels of rigor involved, depending upon students, is very, very similar. The things that we ask our kids to learn, the things that we ask our kids to do, has a lot of consistency because of course teamwork and because staff working collaboratively together to ensure that kids are learning and kids have an experience that can cross multiple classrooms, multiple periods. To give us a little bit of perspective, looking back about a decade, you can see from our school report card what our enrollment was like. Our science enrollment, the number of requests we had back at 2012-13 was just over 1,600. And then just some basic demographics of the kids that we have in the building at that time. When you look at this year, our enrollment a little bit down from where it had been. Our science enrollment is about 150 or so higher than that point about a dozen years ago or so. And of course, as we all know, our demographics and our community has changed. So when we talk about trying to build a place where we want to have kids feel like they want to be, a place where they belong, I think you can see that our students have decided that they want to keep taking science classes. We have a 2-year graduation requirement. After that, they have to opt in. And we've had more and more kids across the last decade opt in over and over and over. You don't do that if you don't want to be someplace. When you look at our freshman experiences, we talked about looking at coursework and making sure that it has a purpose and that it serves our public. Back in 2012-13, these were all of the different levels or offerings that had to do with some type of biology class. The first one, the science course that's listed there, is a very supported special ed course for students with a lot of need. And then an Essentials of Biology is a co-taught class with a special ed teacher and a science teacher. We had a life science class, which was different than the Essentials of Biology. Then we had a regular biology. We didn't have any bilingual sections. We didn't have any, or we had one sheltered section, and about just over 100 kids in honors biology. Move forward to this current year. As we look to next year, our enrollment numbers, we still have some kids who need that support in that science course, and it's offered, and we do our best to make sure that we support them and give them the course they need. But beyond that, you can see that what we've really worked to do is find the most appropriate level of rigor that a kid can handle and still challenge them to move forward and to grow. So we've gotten rid of some of the levels of courses that really were tracked, that kids got stuck in, and then they kept following the same level of rigor course without ever getting out of it. And most of the kids in that life science course, for example, were 2-year science students, and then they were done. So we tried to find places where we could redirect that and make it so that it was part of a sequence where they would continue with us and possibly move in any direction as needed to a more rigorous or a less rigorous course as we could determine their needs. Sophomore year, it was much of the same. Back then, we had a physical science class. It was a semester of physics, semester of chemistry. For a lot of kids, that was their second year, and then they were done. And we offered bilingual physical science and sheltered physical science. About half the kids or so in general chemistry. If you had an EL or English language learner need, you did not have an opportunity to take a regular chemistry class or a sheltered or bilingual chemistry class. You were automatically in the physical science course. And so, when we look at things that are just creating inequities or lack of access, this is a prime example of one of those situations where we knew this had to stop and we had to redirect the curriculum so that everybody had an opportunity. And as you look at the numbers to the right, you can see that we're down a little bit in chemistry, but when you think about the bilingual chemistry and the sheltered chemistry as additional chemistry classes, we're back at about the same number. You can see that we've grown in the honors chemistry numbers, once again, challenging kids to challenge themselves. This one says junior courses only because 2012 and 13, physics was the junior course. And, we had roughly half the class, junior class, take it. Some kids took the AP Physics B, which was the old AP Physics course. They, in 2016, split that into AP Physics 1 and 2, so it's no longer offered. We had 16 kids who would be in that AP Physics B course back then. As you look now, we've got 212 in a regular physics with another 37 in a sheltered physics, and then, almost 100 kids taking AP Physics 1. I titled this Junior and Senior Courses because currently these courses have both juniors and seniors enrolled. In years past, when before we started making some changes, these were, if they were offered, primarily just senior courses. But now by opening things up a little bit, we have kids taking multiple courses or getting to more AP courses earlier, giving them more options. You can see that there are a handful of them that 2012-13 have 0 as enrollment. If that's listed, that means the course didn't exist at that time. So all of those ones are things that have been added, things that we've purposefully put in place to lead to opportunities to challenge kids and because kids have had some interest. When you look at the human anatomy number, it went from 92 to 78, but underneath that you see the introduction to healthcare 1 and 2, which will be new this coming year. And we've got, it's healthcare 1 is semester 1, healthcare 2, semester 2. So roughly 60 kids enrolled there. What we know is that we have some kids who are taking human anatomy first and then plan on taking the intro to healthcare. We have some kids who plan on taking the intro to healthcare and then taking anatomy. They are going to work hand in hand, and we're excited about it. When we offered it for the first time this year, we had over 100 kids request to take it. We didn't have the capacity at this time to run it that large, but it does show the interest and the need that our kids recognize for the experience. Once again, as you go down, you see botany. Corey's here, she'll talk in a few minutes, but Corey was our botany teacher. We ran botany about every other year, and the reason was, it was a very academic-based dual credit course through College of DuPage. A lot of vocab. In our kids, we knew, they wanted to learn how things grew. They wanted to be in the greenhouse. They wanted to get their hands dirty. And so we made the decision that instead of running botany every other year and trying to fight with, getting enrollment for dual credit, we would change and call it Horticulture 1, Horticulture 2, and write our own course that our kids would enjoy, that would fit our needs, and utilize the areas in the building that we have that our kids enjoy being in. So this is our first year with Horticulture 1 and 2. And those of you that are mothers with a present in front of you, you can see it's been a success. We also will offer drone technology for the first time coming up this year, and it will be a semester course. It's a very, very interesting, very exciting course. When I suggested it, Dr. Dwyer was not so sure that we would have an interest, and then we had 50 kids sign up. So, it is an interest for sure. The other thing that we had to realize is that when we do create all these additional experiences, they are great ideas, but they're not worth anything if there's no opportunity to access them. And so in the last year and in the coming year, we've worked on opening up grade bands a little bit wider for kids to get to courses, as long as they still meet some of the necessary prerequisites. For example, AP Physics 1 had typically been a junior-senior course. You needed to be enrolled in Algebra 2 or higher to take the course. Now we've opened it up grades 9 through 12, so a freshman who's in honors biology who has an interest in science and wants, as an elective, to take another science course, if they are in Algebra 2 as a freshman, which we do have kids in Algebra 2, they can sign up and take AP Physics 1 at the same time. Why would a kid do that? Well, they may just have a love for science, but you also might have kids who have an interest, for example, in engineering. And if they can get to AP Physics 1 freshman year and AP Physics 2 sophomore year, they've got now opportunities to get to the pre-engineering courses, for example, in CTE. And so this is really just trying to make sure that we get kids with the capacities to do well, but we also get it to them earlier and create more opportunities, more openings, and trying to just meet the flexibility in the schedule because it is tight for kids who really have an idea of what they want to do. So we talked about those practices earlier. When we talk with kids about, these are the things that we're going to do, think and act like a scientist, in our lens, we're thinking in terms of potential STEM careers. But the reality of it is, when you looked at that list of 8 things, and you look at this list of the most in-demand skills in terms of employment right now, you can see that they are very parallel, and many of the skills show up. They might be called something different, but communication's there. Analytics is there. Teamwork. Our kids are constantly working in groups of 2s, 3s, and 4s. Problem solving, research, adaptability. All of that is part of that scientific thinking that we're trying to ingrain in kids day after day after day. So even if a STEM career is not that career for them, whatever career they choose, if they develop those critical thinking skills, they're going to be a valued employee. And that's our goal. How do we allow kids to become productive adults with productive lives? However, we do have a little bit of a STEM bend. We are science. And so, and we do so with the eye to the future. This is from the Bureau of Labor just recently. And it clearly shows in the next 10 years the projections in terms of STEM careers, in the availability of jobs and the earnings that are available. We've recently began the work, as we've talked, and Mary's already talked before in a meeting about pathways. We are building the healthcare pathway currently. There are many parts to it. One of them is our anatomy course. We've had anatomy here for quite a while. Currently, we've got a first-year teacher who's done a very nice job. She's a trained and certified EMT, so she brings some experience to the position. One of the things that we've worked this year, and we've had the help and the support from Dan Oberg and from the superintendents, hopefully fingers crossed. We're working on securing a grant purchase through CDH for a cadaver table, a three-dimensional cadaver table. And, these are cutting edge. They're used in many universities and colleges around the country. They're used in a handful of high schools around the state. Just to give you a quick picture of what this would look like, Mary, you want to show that? We'll watch just a little bit here. It's on double time and the sound's off just so we can see. So we're hoping to find out in June that CDH is gonna, be a partner with us and help us. And really, for us, our selling point to them is we build a healthcare pathway. We're going to have students, many of which or whom are bilingual, and you're going to need healthcare workers. So regardless of what the position is, you're going to need them, and they're going to be here in your backyard. The cadaver table itself replaces the one-time trip to the cadaver lab, which is really just a novelty. This brings that experience into every lesson that you need it to be in. And it gets kids to interact virtually. It gets them to see and not only read or watch a movie about something, but to actually be able to virtually pull layers back and see what's happening. Research has shown, as it says there at the bottom, that there's a large learning gain that happens in places that have these types of tables. So cross your fingers and we'll hopefully have some good news coming up. So the next aspect of the healthcare career pathway has to do with our introduction to healthcare courses. We're offering 1 and 2 each as a semester. It's a blended class. We're using a company called SimRated as a partner. They provide much of the curriculum and the equipment. It is developed out at the University of California, Davis for their nursing program. The director of their nursing program actually created the program as a training tool for future nurses, and then out west it's taken hold in universities and in hospitals as a training tool. It's recently started moving this way, and we're hoping to be one of the first in the state and in the area to utilize their program to help our kids. The main gist of it will be this. There will be some career investigation that kids are going to be required to do, and then there's also going to be some skill-based practice and knowledge gained according to the modules that we'll purchase from SimRated. We're focusing in on the first year in terms of skills that create opportunities in athletic training and physical therapy and surgical technician and also as an RN. What happens or how the program works, SimRated provides a technical reading that a clinician has written. Students are given access. They read till they feel like they know it well enough. They perform an online assessment. The clinician grades that. The kids get feedback. If they show that they have some proficiency, they're given a knowledge badge. A badge kind of like Microsoft badge or a Google badge when you learn a skill through those programs. You then proceed to a skill, and they send a video of an actual clinician doing the actual skill. Students watch, they use a rubric, they learn. When they're ready and proficient, they video themselves using the equipment to do the same skill. The video goes back to a clinician, somebody actually in the field, who rates it. If they're proficient, they once again get a skill badge. If they're not, they get feedback and they can repeat the process until they are. So it's really an exciting proposition for us. Watch just a little bit of the video that kids will see. This is on incubation, which is one of the skills that we're hoping our kids will work on next year. Once again, we sped it up a little bit so that we can get through it, but you can see it's kind of like a CPR dummy. Each of the different skills will have different pieces of equipment. Kids will have a rubric and some instruction. They'll learn, they'll practice, they'll do this themselves. They'll have it sent back to this clinician, and that person will assess whether or not they know what they're doing. Our hopes is that we will continue this with healthcare 3 and 4 being added next, and so we could widen the skills that are offered. These are not all the ones that we are offering. They are simply the list that Simrated offers for purchase. We'll make some decisions on what might fit best with our kids. Probably do a little bit of surveying of kids early on in the first semester next year to see what interests they have once they're in the program. So, really, really cool opportunity. Once again, this is an opportunity for us to hopefully invite College of DuPage or CDH over to see what we're doing, knowing that this could be something that they could use too. They need continuing educational hours at CDH. They need nurses training at COD. So we're looking really, to be at the forefront here. It should be really exciting for us. These are the steps that we're taking to secure that healthcare pathway as required by the state. You can see that we're going to work towards securing dual credit for anatomy again. Once we have healthcare 1 and 2 running and give them an opportunity to see what it looks like and understand the program, begin having those discussions with COD about some opportunities for dual credit there. We've had a Health Occupation Students of America Club, a HOSA club, for a handful of years prior. I had a real successful run for about 4 years. And then pandemic hit, ran out of the opportunity to have sponsorships, so it hasn't run for a couple years now. We're hoping to bring that back because that's part of this pathway also. It's an opportunity for kids to actually learn some skills and to compete statewide in those skills or those knowledge tests. And the interesting thing is, in the last year, Simrated, that company that we're using, is going to, or is currently partnering with HOSA. So it will tie up nicely for us. And then just a few other things down that list that you can see. Quite a bit of work coming. Talking real quickly about some of the things that our kids can access outside of class. So on the right over there, it's hard to see, it says WeGo STEM. That little snapshot there is our Google Classroom that we used to post opportunities and experiences for kids. The posting that is pasted up there was just put up last week. It's a free camp from Fermilab for our young ladies who sign up, with transportation included. And we continue to have somewhere near 150 to 200 kids who actively participate in the classroom for all different kinds of experiences. They're not all STEM, Fermilab, or COD. Some of them are math related or CTE related. So it's a wide variety of experiences. Well, as I said before, HOSA is hopefully going to get rolling again next year. We've had a club, like I said, for 4 years prior. There's a few of our kids up on the state awards stage before they were awarded their awards for the competition that they were in. And we also have a few other different opportunities. Club Green, sponsored by Suzanne Perjacki, is basically our environmental club. We've got Horticulture Club with Ms. Stiglitz over here. That does quite a bit of work in the greenhouse throughout the year, and then in the spring we all benefit with the sales for Mother's Day and the Bloomfest downtown coming up in a couple weeks. And our newest club, Drone Club, sponsored by Adam Singer, who will be teaching the drone technology class, started middle of the year last year. Interesting enough, there's only a handful of schools around the state or even around the area that have a drone racing club. So they kind of banded together to make their own conference, and they actually even have a school from Arizona that flew up for the conference competition. And our drone club won the initial pseudo conference title this year. So can you click on that real quickly? This is an example of a flyover that the kids did this summer. It's a great view of our campus. Now, the exciting thing about us having this new drone technology course is it's going to meet kids in a variety of places. Some kids will have no idea what a drone even is. And some kids will have 2 or 3 of their own at home. Some kids will want to race. Some kids will want to do photography. Some kids will just want to know, how does this thing work? So, they'll start from scratch, do the circuitry, do all the technical work behind it, and in the meantime, learn the science of why things fly. How do I, increase the acceleration? All those little physics lessons that maybe seem so dry when many of us did worksheet after worksheet now come to life, right there in front of them. So, that's just a little bit about us over the last decade or so, and where we're headed, hopefully in the next few years. Last couple slides. Come on. Hard to read, but you have it in the packet. These are the staff members that have helped our kids this year think and act like scientists and build a place where kids want to be. The one thing I would suggest or really like to highlight is, their coursework's listed next to their name. After that, for many of them, is a club, a sponsorship, an activity, a team. When we talk about building a place where kids want to be, to me, that's the evidence. When they find a place, build a place where kids can find their own little niche after school, it's working on building a place where kids want to be, whether it's in the classroom or at 315. And, I think that's one of the things I'm most proud of is just how involved, the whole group is. And with that, thanks.
Thank you for a very enlightening presentation. All right, that brings us to end-of-year information and reminders.
This time of year, there's always several festive events and lots of different milestones for our students. For example, on Friday, we celebrate another wonderful prom at the Field Museum, well attended, no incidents, and our kids were wonderful. But as a reminder, there are some definite key events I wanted to remind the board of. Tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m. sharp, if anybody is interested. The seniors all have the opportunity to come to the stadium to enjoy breakfast, play games, and watch the sunrise together. This tradition started last year, and they call it Senior Sunrise. On Monday, the 13th, is our annual Senior Honors Night in Wayrock Auditorium. As you will all remember, this is when our seniors wear their gowns and receive various awards and recognition for their next steps into adulthood. And then just 2 days later, as we all know, commencement at NIU. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. It's a wonderful, very formal event and the culmination of 4 wonderful years. And last but not least, on Thursday the 23rd, we'll have our annual staff brunch at 9:30 a.m. in the Commons. This is also where we get to honor our retirees. And of course, everyone's attendance is always welcomed at any of these events, as well as any of the other festive end-of-the-year activities that we have going on.
I can tag on to that just for a second, Mr. Brown. Kathy Lynn and Penny, you'll notice that there are some lovely flowers there in front of you from Corey Stiglitz and the Horticulture Club and classes. Mary had a great idea, thought that we should recognize the 3 of you for Mother's Day. So you'll have a card there signed by members of the district leadership team as our way of saying thank you and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. They're beautiful.
All right, that brings us to new business. The first item is personnel report. The recommended motions that the Board of Education approve the personnel report as presented. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Mr. Suniga?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Mr. Brown, if I may, before we jump to the next item. Normally, I know we don't give report with the personnel report itself, but tonight I'm really excited to introduce you all to, I guess, no longer our recommended candidate, but now our approved new division head for counseling, Miss Dawn Erickson. Dawn, if you could stand for just a moment, I'd love to introduce you. Dawn has been a school counselor since 2009, starting her career at Plainfield School District 202 and spending the last 9 years at East Leiden High School as a department chair of student services. She currently leads a team of 11 counselors and social workers in developing curriculum and programming, serves as a member of the district leadership team, and leads initiatives in MTSS, parent engagement, and post-secondary pathways. Dawn also serves as I want to make sure I get this right, recognized ASCA model program, which is called RAMP. So she's a RAMP team captain, one of a select group of individuals who lead the national recognition process and have a voice in the national school counseling model. Dawn has been an integral part of aligning to the American School Counseling Association, which you've heard referred to as ASCA, national framework, and achieved RAMP status at both of the schools that she has served. Impressively, Dawn was also honored as one of Illinois School Counselors of the Year in 2015. She is most excited about meeting WeGo students and supporting the WeGo counseling team, and we are equally as enthused to welcome Dawn on board. Thank you, Dawn. Congratulations.
Welcome to West Chicago. All right, that brings us to FY 2025 miscellaneous wages recommendation.
Great. Okay, just want to make sure I have this in front of me. So this evening, you do have a proposal in front of you for miscellaneous wages, and you'll notice that there are quite a few recommended changes going into FY 25. To start, I want to take a look at our substitute rates that you'll see at the top of the second page. It's right behind the memo. First, you'll see that, in light of the fact that there is still a substitute teacher shortage, not only regionally but nationally, we're really trying to keep up with that. And I found this is an area where we're having a lot of success, and we're very thankful for that. And so I am recommending an increase of $1 to each tier. So it's $1 per period for each of the tiers. And again, we'll maintain those loyalty rates going into the next school year. That's approximately a 3.3 to 3.8% increase, which mirrors what we're seeing approximately with our teaching staff increases for next year as well. A very rough estimate, since we can't predict how many substitute teachers will be required next year, but approximately $5,000 we'd be looking at related to that change. Another change that I'm excited to propose is an additional line, and this is specifically for licensed retired teachers from the district who come back to substitute teach in the district. They really offer a particularly special value to us because they know our students, our curriculum, our building, our culture so well. And so if they're willing to come back and work for us, we really want to encourage that. And so that's why I'm recommending a special rate of $34 per period for all retirees, licensed retirees, that is, who return. You'll also just see our annual increases for long-term subs, which is still based on the BA0 starting salary. Next, when we look at the non-certified substitutes, so this is really looking at those rare occasions when we have a temporary worker who's hired into a into a support staff position. In the past, that's been listed as essentially minimum wage. And when you're looking at a temporary worker who's not necessarily getting any other fringe benefits like our support staff association members do, it's impossible to attract somebody into those types of positions. And so my recommendation would be essentially to mirror what our contract shows, but of course excluding any type of benefits. So a temporary worker would receive the lowest hourly CBA rate based on the category of the position in our support staff collective bargaining agreement. And then a retiree from a support staff position in the district would maintain whatever their most recent hourly wage was in that role. And then finally, when you look at event workers, this is still considered voluntary work. which is paid a nominal rate. We haven't seen an increase to those rates in a couple of years. I believe it was FY22 was the last time that we made any increase, and so I am recommending an increase of $5 per event. And I believe that comes out, again, very rough estimate because we don't know exactly how many workers would be needed or how many events to anticipate for next year, but approximately $31.50 looking at next year based on the number of events that we're seeing right now. I will plan to bring a recommendation for approval of the miscellaneous wages for 24-25 to the May 21st board meeting, and welcome any questions or feedback you may have.
Any questions or comments regarding miscellaneous wages? All right, that brings us to fiscal year 2025 Appendix B recommendation.
Fantastic. This is a really easy one. The Appendix B committee convened for the third time this year to look at needs for 24-25. At this time, our only recommendation is to continue those groups that are at probationary status with a paid sponsor. And so as you can see in the memo, we're looking at Alegría, which would be going into year 3 of 4, and they would maintain group 7. Drone Club going into year 2. Hopefully that'll match up with a lot of the students in the class. They would be at group 6. Robotics into year 3. We did recommend a change to group 5. Previously, they were in group 6, but based on the data we received back from that group, we felt that was a more appropriate placement. And then finally, Rock Climbing Club into year 2 at group 7. And again, I'll plan to bring a final recommendation to the next board meeting and welcome any questions you have.
What is Alegría?
Alegría is a Latin dance-focused group. And they host the Latin Fever event every year?
They're a big part of planning.
Big part of
that.
it.
Big part
Okay,
of that.
fantastic.
Any other questions or comments regarding Appendix B? All right, next item is petition to name the pool. Attila?
So the board knows that a few months ago, it approved a change to the Powell Building Facilities Policy regarding the naming and renaming of facilities. So this evening, we have some people here to speak to this issue, but you have a cover memo which explains this particular petition. It is to name the pool after Dan Johnson, and a little bit of biography about Dan is in the cover memo, but a little bit more extensive in the petition proposal itself. And we would entertain any questions that the board may have about it. However, the primary people are Corey Stiglitz and Sherry Bown and a couple of other people. So Corey and folks, if you want to come to the microphone and speak to the proposal.
Good evening, I'm Corey Stiglitz. This has nothing to do with the pool, but I can't help myself. To the mothers that the flowers are, I want you to cut them down. That will induce, and I know that would look ugly, and I keep trying to tell my students, but that'll induce the flowering even more. So I just really want scissors right now. I can't stop. Okay. Yeah, I was like, okay. I have a couple other people with me and a couple words to say. Science teacher, biology, and horticulture. And I've also served the district. This is finishing my 24th year. I've worked nowhere else, and I was also a student for 4 years as well. So just to tell you a little bit about my stuff. I stand before you on behalf of hundreds of people, if not thousands, who would like to see the pool named after Dan Johnson. He's been a fixture of the pool since its inception in 1978. Generations of swimmers, like myself, and those swimmers' daughters, like my daughter, have swam at the high school pool, reaching goals well beyond their wildest dreams. He was an inspiration to all he worked with, students, swimmers, as well as colleagues. I was lucky enough to have worked with Dan in all three facets. He was my teacher, he was my coach, and he was my colleague. With Dan as my coach, the Lady Wildcat swim team took home third place at the IHSA swim state meet. This was the only beginning because several state champions followed and championships continue to this day. Dan was the type of person that if you need him to get up early, go to practice early, work on starts or turns, or redefine your stroke, he would be there in a heartbeat, without hesitation. As many of you know, he worked his entire career at West Chicago High School as a swim coach, PE teacher, and department chair. After his cancer diagnosis, he continued to announce girls' high school swim meets as well as West Chicago Sharks meets. He always added his humorous flair, if you were ever there. I'm lucky to work in a place where I have memories of him, and I feel his presence daily. I'm sorry. The strongest presence is at the pool. And I know I'm not alone in experiencing this feeling. Please do not take this nomination lightly. Sorry. And consider this proposal. I, as well as the thousands of others, would like to walk into the pool area and learn about his legacy. And you can help make that happen by naming our pool after Dan Johnson. Thank you.
Now that we're all crying, I also had the privilege of coaching with Dan. I coached Mary Beth and Corey and Dan. My name is Amy Gibson. I had the privilege of working with Dan Johnson for 32 years. We were both hired in 1978 to teach swimming at the high school to students and to coach high school swimming teams. I later coached the West Chicago Sharks with him. Our first year here at the high school, we did have a problem. The pool was not finished. It was under construction, and they had estimated it would be finished, so we spent our first year having practices at the St. Charles Reform School, and it was also the blizzard of 78 years. So it was a memorable year, our first year of coaching together here at the school. Dan spent endless hours coaching the high school teams and the West Chicago Sharks. Swimming is a year-round sport, and Dan knew that you had to start with the age group program to build a high school program. Even after he retired, as Corey mentioned, he still was at the table announcing swim meets. He even arranged for alumni swim meets for We Go swimmers that had graduated. Recently, Dan was inducted into the Illinois Swimming Hall of Fame. Illinois Swimming created an annual Dan Johnson Coaches Award. It would be for a coach that exemplifies being, and this is in quotes, an amazing colleague to his fellow coaches on and off the deck. That describes who Dan was to fellow coaches, staff, swimmers, and their families. When Dan passed away, the family held the memorial service at the high school. I'm sorry. To accommodate the large crowd that wanted to pay their respects. It was a wonderful tribute to Dan. He was loved and respected by his students, coworkers, and other coaches. He was generous with his time and his talent. Dan wasn't just a coworker, he was a very good friend. I believe that naming the pool after Dan would be a wonderful way to honor him. Thank you.
I didn't prepare anything, but I'll introduce myself. I also, like Corey, started swimming for Dan Johnson. He was my very first swim coach. I swam high school swimming for him. He was my freshman year coach, and then Amy was my coach the last 3 years. Dan Johnson encouraged me to go continue swimming in college. He told me that if I wanted to be a coach someday, that swimming in college would be the way to do that. And when I graduated, he was my champion here at District 94, and I was hired right out of college to coach, had coached the boys swim team for 4 years, and then coached side by side with him for 8 years on the girls swim team. And I was a coach in 1991 when we won that trophy. I was assistant coach that year. We continued coaching for another 20 years side by side on the Sharks swim team, and he became a dear, dear friend to me as well. And I look forward to someday walking into the pool and seeing his name above the doors. Thank you.
Wow, it's hard to think that more can be added, but you know there's a lot more that could be added. I'm Sherry Bown. Our daughter, my husband is here, our daughter swam for Coach Dan Johnson from 92 to 96 when she graduated. She had a very terrible car accident right before her senior year, and she broke her back in several places and ribs and collapsed lungs. It was a miracle that she made it. Her rehab started in the pool, and Coach couldn't have been more encouraging to her. She started out just walking in the pool against the pressure of the water. And he saw her through that whole senior year, which she did actually swim before the end of the year, but of course not at the competitive level that she had been. Dan made friends with all students, with all parents. I just want to read a little bit of the petition that we circulated to so many people, because I think in a nutshell it tells what Dan is about. While the Sharks and the Wildcats earned more than their share of wins, winning was never the main goal for Coach Dan Johnson. He measured success by how well he connected with each swimmer, helping his Sharks through their adolescent years, following them to his Wildcat team, and championing new and veteran swimmers of both teams with his high expectations and steadfast nurturing all the way to their graduation from community high school. He always said his #1 job was simply to make sure each kid loved being a swimmer. Now we need to name our pool and natatorium the official Daniel Ray Johnson Memorial Pool. I hope you agree. Thank you.
Any questions or comments regarding the petition to name the pool?
I'd make a comment. We have Bishop Gym and Wyrock Auditorium, and to be honest, I have no idea who they are or why we named them. I would hope that as part of this, we would have some kind of bibliography or biography on a plaque or something. So in 50 years, people that come won't wonder why is the pool named after Dan Johnson. There'll be some rationale behind it. And if anybody knows who Bishop and Wyrock are, if they let somebody know. You do?
I know who Bishop is, but there's a plaque for him.
You don't know. Nobody
Doesn't say much,
knows,
though,
Rich.
does it?
There's also, previous to this LRC, the old LRC was named after Dick Cam, who I know several of you know. There is a plaque to him on the wall as well, but your point's well taken, Rich. We can get plaques for those facilities that are already named with history. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Just want to make a comment and thank everybody for speaking today. As a former Shark and Wildcat, I'm honored and proud to be part of, first of all, the committee. I want to definitely thank Lynn and Attila for your support, because there was just a lot of moving parts to it, but everybody for being here today.
Any other comments? All right, next item is the DuPage County Regional Office of Education and Community High School District 94 Memorandum of Understanding.
So this is an annual MOU between the ROE and every district in DuPage County that chooses to participate in the programs that the MOU actually supports. The reason it's coming before you is because it does involve funds, and the board should approve an MOU with another agency that involves funding. So there's the explanation on the cover memo as well as the actual MOU, and I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have, and I think that perhaps Will could also entertain some questions regarding the Regional Safe Schools program and our participation in that, in some of the ROE programs.
Any questions? All right, then. That brings us to fiscal year 2025 budget timeline.
Thank you. So as mentioned before, the budget is in full swing. I'll be meeting with department heads to discuss their budgets in the coming weeks, as well as discussing budget needs and wants from Dr. Johansson later this week. We will keep a similar timeline as last year. I plan to present the budget at the August Committee of the Whole meeting, and then ask the board to approve it at the September board meeting. Any questions on that?
All right. Fiscal year 2024 amended budget.
Attached to the agenda is the revised ISB 5036 annual budget, taking into account the changes noted in the memo provided in the packet. As you can see, we only have a few changes, which includes the driver's ed program, Board of Education expenditures, and tuition for outside regular programs. The original budget had enough surplus to fund these additional expenditures in the budget. So then the timeline for approving the budget is similar to any other budget. We'll publicly post that budget sometime soon in the next week, and then ask the board to approve the budget in a public hearing at the June board meeting. Any questions on the amended budget?
Okay, that brings us to summer food service update.
So just a quick update for the food service program. We're moving along on that. As you can see, we're starting to finalize some of the details of this program. We look to serve meals from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 3 locations: Reed Kepler Park on the outside of the Turtle Splash Pond on the south side, by Timberlake Apartments over by their pool in that area, and then at the high school. We'll also serve the students that are attending summer school at the high school. We'll have communications going out to the community soon, hopefully by the end of the week, on all of those details. Any question on summer food service?
Okay, fiscal year 2025 copy paper bid results.
So we had a bid opening on May 3rd for copy paper. We had 2 vendors submit bids. Murnane provided the same pricing as they did last year, which was the lowest bid. So I'll ask the board to approve that bid from Murnane Paper at the May 21st board meeting. Any questions?
Annual furniture order.
All right. All right. So as you can see from that furniture order, this is our annual furniture that we do every year. I get requests coming in from department heads. I talk to other administration to figure out exactly what department needs there are. And as you can see, we're starting to get to the point where we're looking to refresh some spaces as the general furniture, general classroom furniture. We're not getting that many requests for that. So the art classroom has been on the list to refresh for a couple of years. We're kind of waiting for some retirements and kind of figure out the best way to go with that. The department spent a lot of time going to different schools, taking a look at other options, looking at other furniture. And so they landed on the Haskell Education Maker tables. They look like really good tables that will provide a lot of needed storage. They have a good working space for the students, and are mobile, so to allow the teachers to move around the classroom, do different things. And so the total cost for that furniture in that classroom is $53,685.11. Another classroom that needed a refresh was the STAR classroom. So the educators in that classroom spent time listening to their students and understanding how they can improve the space to make it a more welcoming and better learning space for them. And so based on those discussions, they wanted various types of seating So the recommendation is a few high top tables, some regular height tables, and then some soft seating around the perimeter for students to move about if they, because they spend a lot of time in those classrooms. And so the total cost for the furniture in that classroom is $38,243.51. And so then we also looked at the building to determine other spaces for soft seating and study areas, as we discussed at prior board meetings. So we found that the math wing and then outside the LRC are both good spots that could use this type of furniture. So the total cost for those areas is $18,289.86. So lastly, we, as I said, the general classroom furniture, total cost for that furniture is $29,343.31, which just includes teacher desks, teacher chairs, regular student tables in the classroom, and some more student chairs in those classrooms too. So the quote is from Warehouse Direct, who we've used in the past. They utilize the Omnia purchasing contracts. They've been very helpful in determining colors and schemes and layouts and all sorts of specifications. So I plan to bring that to the board for approval at the May 21st board meeting. Any questions on furniture?
Right. Care Solace contract.
I'm going to turn that one over to Will.
One of the bigger challenges schools are having right now is addressing needed mental health services. As you may know, oftentimes it becomes beyond the scope of what the school can provide that a student and or their family members may need. Since April 1st and through the end of this school year, we've been partnering with a service called Care Solace. And what it does is it provides our families or our students basically a referral. We can refer them to this program, and then that program takes them, looks at their insurance, if they have insurance, and it's able to match their needs specifically. Currently, waiting times and long wait lists to get into mental health services are a challenge. This service is basically a third party that connects the school with the student, with the service, and they're able to navigate them the rest of the way through that kind of unfortunately complicated and at times time-intensive process. So currently, the pilot is being funded by We Go Together for Kids for just over $2,500. And after going through professional development with the administration and Student Services Department, as well looking at the need that we've had, we plan to propose a year-long contract with Care Solace in the amount of $10,335 for next school year. But We Go Together for Kids has already allocated funds that they would reimburse the district if we were to enter into this agreement with them. And I'll take any questions you may have about that. Oh, I should mention that District 33 does use this service, so it definitely would provide some continuity and familiarity for a majority of the students who matriculate to D94.
All right. Staff laptops purchase.
All right, back to Will again? No? Never mind.
It's a good move.
Thanks. So every 4 or 5 years, we refresh staff laptops. The last replacement was in May of 2020. The current laptops that we have are having issues such as batteries are failing. The IT department is also wanting to migrate to Windows 11 as the Windows 10 is no longer being supported or will be supported. So it's also a good time for that migration so that they can just install the Windows 11 onto the new laptops. We're getting quotes from multiple vendors. We do have one quote from CDW already at $205,035, and we'll ask the board to approve the lowest quote that we receive at the May 21st board meeting.
All right, and finally, additional music library storage system purchase.
So at the June 2023 board meeting, the board approved the purchase of a music library storage system for the music department. At the time, they thought that this order was going to be large enough to hold all of the current sheet music that they had in their regular file cabinets. Once they got started moving some of those files, they realized that they would not have enough space. So they're requesting additional sections of the library. The additional sections of that library, we have a quote from Wenger Music for $12,242.07. the department does have enough funds in their budget for this purchase this year. So again, I will ask for the board to approve that purchase at the May 21st board meeting.
I have to question $2,244 freight expense on that.
They're a big item, and freight for that is pretty expensive. Unfortunately,
Are they bringing this in a moving van or something? I mean, that seems a lot